Okay. During the summer of 2020, the summer from hell, and all the I'm sure you remember, Andrew, the Black Lives Matter riots were going on. There was a lot of looting that was excused by certain like radical leftists, and their rationale for that was because the people were stealing were poor, and they stole from mega corporations, for example, who have too much and they don't contribute to society. So I assume you don't accept that position.
I actually don't understand how this relates to the topic, but I'm willing to engage with it, I guess, anyway. No, I would not accept that standard, but I think that the justification they were really using for BLM was different, which they were making it about social justice, though I do think there were a few leftist apologists who were definitely making the claim of social inequality.
Yeah. And okay, that's perfectly fine. I mean, without getting into like if you can do it quickly, fine. If you don't want to, then, or if you don't think you can, that's fine. But what's your position on like the redistribution of wealth in general, in welfare in general? Just kind of like for, against, or, and I think it can be done properly, but whatever.
Oh man, that's that's kind of loaded. So generally speaking, I'm a capitalism supporter. I think that has done, as Bono rightly pointed out, it has done more to bring people out of poverty than any other system which is available. But I also believe in the charitable donations of the various peoples who follow the faith, and that they should help where they can help.
Well, personal charity and redistribute. I guess I was thinking from the lens of a bureaucratic government apparatus.
Well, I mean, it's hard. You'd have to give me something specific. Like, do I think that the government has a right to levy taxes? Yes. Do I think that the government should levy income taxes? Probably not. Okay. I think there's better ways like tariffs or things like this. But generally speaking, I'm against a redistributive model. If you're talking about government takes from rich guy and then hands it to the poor guy, generally speaking, I would be adverse to something like that. Okay.
Fair enough. So I have some quotes, and I want to read the quotes for you, and then I'll kind of get your reaction to them. Whatever certain people have in superabundance ought to go to supporting the poor. Mm-hmm. The next one is, it is lawful for a man to support his own need by means of another's property, by taking it, either openly or secretly. This is not, properly speaking, theft or robbery. Another one.
Wait, say that one again.
It is lawful for a man to support his own need by means of others' property, by taking it either openly or secretly. This is not, properly speaking, theft or robbery.
Okay.
Couple more. Anyone who has material possessions and sees his brother in need but does not help doesn't possess love. And this last one's not super relevant, but well,
yeah, it's kind of talking about. Well, the third one's referencing sins of omission. So there's 3 categories of sin, and a sin of omission would be like you can help a person, but you choose not to help a person.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Next one. Now, in human society, no man can exercise coercion except through public authority. With regards to rulers, the public powers entrusted to them, that they may be the guardians of justice. It's not exactly related to the others, but kind of in a little bit. Or will be in a little bit. So I have one more quote, but one more preface to the quote for you. So sorry to bombard you with quotes. But there are some people like Hassan Piker, not a huge fan of him. You probably aren't either. But they take this position that, for example, being tough on crime doesn't do anything. That's the wrong position because it doesn't address root causes. Instead, they believe we should expand welfare or do reparations or whatever to lift people up, and then people just won't want to steal. I think that that's kind of like me. I don't think that that's right. I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Well, I think that you can have a multi-tiered approach. In the purpose of Christian ethics, we definitely have to keep dangerous people away from society, but we would try to focus on rehabilitative justice before we would try to focus on corrective justice, meaning, and when I say corrective in this sense, I just mean punishment. So rehabilitation would always tend to move to the forefront. Though there could be exceptions to that, depending. It just kind of depends on what the case use is.
Sure. To be a little more clear, the idea is that this isn't about this is about before people enter the justice system. Do you agree with the idea that we should like expand welfare and things like that so that people have better means so that they don't feel like stealing? Do you think that would
No, I would adjust
help?
I would adjust policy so that you could try to steer clear of there being a need for welfare. So I think addressing things like inflation, the value of the dollar, Congress's ability to coin money,
Okay.
various things like this would be a much better route to attacking the causes of poverty rather than just handing poor people money. Ultimately, I don't think that gets at the root either.
Okay, fair enough. And then I have one more quote for you. Sorry to do that, but the quote is, and it's related to the thing about, well, we shouldn't be tough on crime. We should just give to the poor so that they don't want to steal. So here's a quote. There are dreadful punishments enacted against thieves, but it would be better to make such good provisions that every man might have the means to live and so be prevented from the necessity of stealing.
Yeah.
So I gave you a litany.
I actually would generally agree with that statement. But when you're talking about the conditionals for how you go about that, that may be where you would get into the argument. Like, what are the conditionals which would address the fact or the thing that made the person the thief to begin with? I don't think that it's solely going to be pointing at poverty. There's going to be a multifaceted effect counter. So
fair enough. In the context of the person speaking about that is kind of what they were talking about, because they were talking about people stealing. So it is material needs that aren't being met. But anyways.
Well, who's the person speaking there?
I'll tell you in just a second. So I just want to know, do you agree with...
Do you feel like you snared the trap? Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, bro. Yes.
So do you agree with any of the logic of any of those quotes I gave to you?
They would have to be context specific. It's like, if you do what's called a quote mining, and you probably run into this all the time with academics, people will take studies, they'll quote mine from studies, or they'll quote mine from various academic papers, and then use that as an example. Flat earthers do this all the time to you evil globies, right? They take just portions of what's being said and they don't contextualize them. And so because they don't contextualize them, you don't really understand in context what they're saying. So I could easily on the surface agree with at least some of what's being said here, but I would probably need to dive into the contextualization.
Well, I'll try to pick out one that I think is actually unambiguous. And it is the idea that it was the second one, the one you had me reread. If somebody steals from somebody to support his own needs, and that person's poor and that other person is well off, then that isn't technically theft or robbery. Yeah.
Well, the thing is what you're talking about a pardonable sin. So like this is a normative fight that people have all the time in Christianity or probably in every secularism, whatever it is. The idea is like, if you're coming out of the desert and you're parched, and you're going to literally die if you don't steal water from a well, are you justified in stealing water from the well, right? This is what the question is. And so, again, I think that you can add some sort of pardonability to something like that versus, well, I broke into your house to steal shit so that I could buy drugs. I think that I think that there's a distinction in contextualization, and that's why I can't actually agree or kind of disagree with that without additional context.
Okay, in America today, does that sound like something you would support?
Generally speaking, no. But again, I still think that if like a kid stole a candy bar, I wouldn't cut his hands off either, right? I would give some kind of pardon for that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're not talking about we're not talking about children.
I'm talking about a 19-year-old. Let's just say, like, I'd call him a kid, right? 19, but he's 19, right? He's a dummy. He did something stupid. He stole a candy bar or something like this because he didn't have enough to eat. I think that most people would probably pardon something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, the question isn't whether or not we should enact corporal punishment for it. It's whether or not it even counts as theft. And a pardon doesn't mean that you absolve the person of guilt either. So I've already used my first 10 minutes, so I kind of want to
I don't want to sidetrack. If you can give me the context for this, I can answer it better.
I actually don't think that these...
You don't want to give me the context, do you? Because then the trap doesn't work. Can you just give me the context, and then I can answer it honestly?
See, what I think is not... Well, no, I think you're not answering because you don't... I guess I'm not really sure. I don't find these quotes to be requiring very much context. It's not theft if you don't have and you steal from somebody somebody that does. Or that people with superabundance ought to give their things away. So the reason
so again, generally speaking,
Andrew, I'm reclaiming my time here. We've already gone through these, so I want to move it along. So I'm not changing the subject. I'm just moving it along.
No problem. It's your cross exam. Go ahead.
But I don't think that these things, I don't really agree that these are my politics either. And I'm a left winger, but I don't think that these agree with your politics either as a right winger. But these quotes are from Jesus, St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Thomas More.
Yeah. Well, who made that quote?
Which one?
The one you just read.
I read 4 of them. They came from
the last one. The last one that you said is unambiguous.
The second one I said is unambiguous, which was it doesn't count if it's theft if you who said it? That's Aquinas.
Yeah, Thomas Aquinas. So the thing is Aquinas's worldview, especially Aquinas, this is why context matters, right? Because I bet a single paragraph beyond that Aquinas would contradict himself.
No, I don't think so. I
bet he does. Go ahead, keep reading.
No, I got this from Summa Theologica, and that's actually from the I have it pulled up here. I'm not gonna dive through. Or is it Utopia? Okay. No, Utopia is St. Thomas More's. Yeah. But I got this from the Summa, and what he does.
Thomas Aquinas was a great apologist. Don't get me wrong, but I don't agree. Aquinas is not a person that I agree with more often than not.
Okay. And that's kind of my point, because you can't just say that this isn't Christian ethics. These are some of the most important and influential people in the history of Christianity. And
agreed.
Very good. But the problem is that I think, according to you, these ideas don't really have a place in government. But these are Christian ideas.
Why?
Do you understand the problem with
why
that?
Are you saying that I think they don't have a place in government?
Because you said you don't agree with these ideas.
Yeah, it's just because I don't agree with an idea doesn't mean it doesn't have a place in government.
Yeah, but it's according to you.
No, the view here is, here's what the debate is. The debate is, Christians shouldn't be allowed in government. They shouldn't. Right?
No, not Christians. No. Christianity.
Christianity. Sorry, Christianity shouldn't be allowed in government. Fair enough. Okay, I'll go ahead and grant it, and you can reclaim your time from here too. But I just want to clarify this, that just so you understand, what does that have to do with Christianity should or shouldn't being in government? I don't actually understand that.
Because can you help me out here? Because if this is Christian ethics, and Andrew believes that the government needs more Christian ethics. But I can point at Christian ethics and it says that theft doesn't count if you're poor. Then Andrew Wilson doesn't agree that Christian ethic belongs in government. Andrew Wilson doesn't agree that Christianity belongs in government.
I don't think you understand. Maybe we can start with this. What do you think Christian ethics are?
So that's a good question for your cross exam right now.
Yeah.
Planet Peter's
well, I mean, to answer, and he can reclaim the time. I just want to make sure that we're clear on this point, because it seems like we're talking. Do you think that inside of the ethical purview of Christianity that there's not rigorous debate? Of course there is, and not only is there, that's completely acceptable. And the idea that Thomas Aquinas could be debating across from like an Orthodox bishop would be totally acceptable.
Yeah, well, I didn't really lay out very much of this in my opening, but I think this is the problem. I think for the position that you take is that these are basically contradictions. Whatever it is that you think the government should do, Christianity, I don't think, is ultimately the source, because you'd have to reject specific Christian ethics in favor of whatever Christian ethics you want, or claim that it comes from Christianity.
Yeah, but that would be the claim with any ideology which existed. Like any two, in fact, I would just say any two people which exist, that would be the case and claim would be any two people who disagree, then therefore the person I disagree with has no place in government. Like, that's silly. Like, I disagree with Christians on all sorts of things constantly, but when you're talking about a general normative framework, we don't disagree very much at all.
Well, I don't think you would agree with what the bishop at Trump's inauguration said, for example. So it is the case that you find, but
that's a fake bishop. Fake bishop.
Well, according to her, you're a fake bishop. You know, she probably
no. Their denomination recognized Orthodox as being Christian. We just don't recognize theirs.
Well, that's an interesting position. But anyways, you can find justifications in whatever you want normatively in government, but you're going to find the opposite of it too. So that means Christianity holds the position of X and not X. So whatever justification or reason you have for the normative,
I think you're conflating two things here. So it's not that Christianity holds the position of X and not X. It's that some Christians could hold the position of X and not X.
Yes, but practicing.
But I thought you just said Christians aren't what we're talking about, but Christianity, right?
Yeah, but it's a Christian ethic developed by.
Well, which Christian ethics are contradicting themselves? You're talking about specific people. So I can make this argument to say, let's say I was talking about red pillars. I can say, well, this red pillar over here contradicts this red pillar, but that wouldn't tell us what the red pill was. It wouldn't tell us what the normative framework was of the red pill, let's say. So you're just talking about particulars with specific people. You're not actually talking about the ideology itself.
So for clarification, this has eaten up about 3 minutes, and this is
he can reclaim it. Look, I'm going to be super charitable here. He can definitely reclaim his time. I just want to make sure we clarify a few things. That's all.
Oh, I thought we were still on my time. I mean, I've been okay with it because I've been asking the questions I want to ask.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I have 15 minutes left then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's cool with me. Anyways, I hear what you're saying, and I think the next line of questioning I have kind of gets to it. Which is okay. So some historical stuff. And I'm not trying to poison the well or lump you in with this stuff. These things are not good. But I'm just throwing them out there. So
are we doing the slavery stuff now?
No, nothing about slavery actually, but I mean, I could talk about that, but whatever. In Virginia, this is in colonial times. There was a guy, his name was Hugh Davis. He was sentenced to corporal punishment for having relations with a black person. His specific accusation was, quote, abusing himself to the dishonor of God and shame of Christianity by defiling his body in lying with a Negro, unquote. We agree that that's bad. In 1959, Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter, they were both sentenced to jail in Virginia for the crime of being married. Richard was white and Mildred was black. The trial judge, he gave them a deal that they could actually avoid jail if they agreed to flee the state of Virginia for 25 years. And his reason was, Almighty God created races, white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriage. The fact that he separated races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix. And if you look at polling, interracial marriage at this time had a 4% approval rating. It was widely deemed, 4% approval. Yeah, it was just widely deemed to be wrong. There's this guy, Pastor Anderson. He's a real piece of shit. He says, look, the Bible clearly says that homosexuals need to be put to death, and the United States government should do it. So I'm sure that Andrew Wilson disagrees with all of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so were they wrong?
And well, what you're using is called a genetic fallacy. So you're trying to attack the position based on the source of the particulars. So this is actually what you're making is a fallacious argument. If you were just asking me, can you just very quickly, and again, you can reclaim your time, but can you just pull up genetic fallacy and then tell us what it says?
Just from memory, my understanding of a genetic fallacy is because things occurred, like historically, this is what occurred, then therefore it was good or justified that those things occurred.
It's a logical fallacy where someone rejects or accepts an argument based solely on its origin or source. And so the thing is that the origin and source, and in this particular case, you're saying, wait a second, look at these particulars, and these particular people did bad things, and so therefore Christian ethics itself is in question. That seems silly. It's not actually attacking Christian ethics. You're just attacking bad things a person did, and then saying somehow this relates to Christian ethics. That is quintessentially a genetic fallacy for sure. Now, if you put it in question form, I can still accept it, and I'll still answer to the question, even accepting the genetic fallacy, which is like, so what? There's laws in Kentucky that I believe you can't shoot rabbits from a trolley cart. I disagree with that law too. I think it's pretty stupid. For one thing, I want to shoot rabbits from a trolley cart. That's one. But the other thing is that I would not, if I were to say to you, secular ethics were bad. Now, if I were to say they were bad because I can't shoot rabbits from a trolley cart and you disagree, therefore secular ethics bad, you would reject that, right? And rightfully so.
I'm not sure. I didn't follow the very end there that much.
Yeah, if I said to you, this law bad, and person did bad thing based on this law, and then use the justification, we don't shoot rabbits from trolley carts because we're secularists. And then I applied that to all secularists. That would be the same fallacy that you're engaging in.
So genetic fallacy was already defined. This is just eating up time at this point.
Sure. So I actually think that you'll see that I'm not really doing that, but I have to kind of evolve the conversation. So we can both agree that that's wrong. And I would argue that you would probably say that what those people's positions was wrong from a Christian ethical position.
Sure.
I would wager, at least. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So next question would be, do you think that the position today that the majority of Christians have are all correct? Or do you think that future Christians will look back at today and condemn certain positions that Christians hold?
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure I got this right. So I'm just going to steel man this to make sure I have it correct, and then you can tell me yes or no before I answer. And again, you can reclaim your time. I just want to make sure I get it right. So the question is, has Christian ethics evolved? And will Christian ethics continue to evolve so people will look back now and say, hey, we got this wrong? Is that correct?
In a way, yeah.
Okay, well then the answer is most assuredly yes. There's going to be all sorts of groups that we're going to point to in the future and say they got Christian ethics wrong, for sure.
Okay, so I think we kind of already answered, or you kind of already answered this, but what is it that you appeal to condemn those things I brought up earlier?
Well, I don't know. At this point, I need to understand how this is pertinent to Christians shouldn't be in government. I need to actually understand that, because now you're getting in. You started by saying you don't want to get into a normative framework, and now you're bringing it to a normative framework, which I don't understand.
I never said that. I said I don't want to get into a moral one.
That's a normative framework.
Morals?
Yeah, ought. Those are ought claims, right? You should or should not do. That's normative.
I draw a distinction between morality and normative ones.
Well, I don't understand. Well, how? If you say something is moral, you ought do what's moral, right? That's normative.
No, I don't think you can derive an ought from an is, but in normative, we can say that.
Well, how do you discuss
this?
Hang on, help me out with this real quick.
Yeah, but Andrew, I'm not being interrogated.
Reclaim the time. Reclaim the time. I just need to clarify.
I am reclaiming the time, but I'm going to answer your question.
I just need to clarify. That's all I'm asking, is for clarification. How can you describe a thing as being moral without an ought? I don't even understand that.
So that's a good question for the cross exam.
No, I need that clarified now, or I can't. I don't even know what he's asking me. So
I understand.
Just clarify it quickly.
I understand that moral systems are systems of prescriptions or whatever for taboos or claims of what you should do, like should or should not.
Yeah, so normative.
Like in a way, but I don't. But well, no, because it's not. I don't think it's the same thing as normative, because again, like what I was talking about earlier in my opening statement was, I can tell you that a compass is better at drawing a straight, or as I'm sorry, a ruler is better at drawing a straight line than a compass.
Yeah, those are
I'm not telling you it's morally wrong to draw.
Yeah, I agree. That's
morally wrong to draw bad straight lines.
Correct. That's
descriptive,
but that's descriptive though. So you're making a descriptive claim. This, when you say better, you're not making a normative claim. You're not saying you ought to make a better straight line. You're just saying if this does make a better straight line. It's still descriptive. But when you're talking about how ought Christians do X, then those are normative. That's a normative framework that you're diving into. You're talking about oughts then. So when you're talking about descriptors, when you're saying, hey, a ruler does make a better straight line than a compass, right? That is not you should make better straight lines with rulers. These are distinct. So when you're getting into normative claims, though, right, I need you to tell me how this ties into the topic of whether or not Christians shouldn't be in government, because that's your claim.
I'm pointing out I'm going to get there very soon, and I'm going to do that by pointing out a contradiction. Taco, I have 5 minutes. Is my time paused?
I've added 7 minutes so far. There's a lot of time being taken over for other questions and whatnot.
Well, you can't give him time back. You can't give him time back for me answering questions. You can just give him time back for me clarifying them. That's what's fair.
Yeah, but I think we're now done with
very fair with it. It's been more than 7 minutes. So
all right, go ahead.
Peterson's cross-exam.
That's fine.
Is it Taco? I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Taco.
So here's where I think the problem lies in. You're appealing to a Christian ethic to condemn what those people did in the past. I asked you about that earlier. You said yes. But that's going to happen in the future to positions that Christians hold today. So I don't understand how you can use the Bible or Christian ethics, because people in the future will judge you or other Christians to be wrong using Christian ethics.
Yeah, but can you imagine
that's the contradiction?
Like here, well, first of all, there's no contradiction, right? A contradiction is a proposition in its negation. There's no negation of any proposition that you've made. All you've said is that
there is.
No, no. What you've said is
you're going to hold on. You're going to argue these are the things we should do. These are the things we shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. That's what slave traders and segregationists said in the past, appealing to Christianity.
That's a genetic fallacy again.
But you appeal to Christianity to say that they're false.
Yeah, but what's my proposition and its negation
will be used against you in the future,
bro?
Meaning you
I don't know why. Listen, I got it
according to Christianity.
Okay, listen, so that you understand. The proposition its negation has to be mine in order for there to be a contradiction. You're saying that Christianity contradicts itself. You have to give me the proposition Christianity gives, and then its negation in order to demonstrate the contradiction. What you're doing is you're giving particulars and saying because people make the self-ID claim of X, therefore this system is flawed. Now, if somebody did that back, you would never accept it in a million years. So if somebody were to say, well, this secularist in communist Russia, which was a secular nation, did the whole Holodomor, therefore all secular ethics are bad, you'd never accept that in a million years, right? Because it's silly. It makes no sense.
Well, I believe in moral progress. Well, not really moral progress, I guess, but I don't know what else to call it. But if you believe that you have an objective and unchanging ethic, then to say yes, and the ethic evolves over time, to me, that screams that you're appealing to something outside of Christianity.
Sure. Hang on, you're right. Hang on. I'm going to give you some clarity here.
This is actually, I only need 10 seconds. You're claiming that it's grounded in Christianity, but everybody at every instance has done that, and they use that logic to claim that the other person's ethic was wrong. And that's what I think the contradiction is.
Yeah, that makes no sense, though, because All you're saying is that a person can self-ID with a particular, and therefore everything will be applied to the particular, even if people don't follow the particular ethic. When you're talking about the shared value of Christendom, especially in Eastern Orthodoxy, or here, I'll give you a better example. So fascism is what really allowed for essentially interracial marriage. That was not a thing which was done until basically the Catholic Church in Italy allowed that to begin. Before that, all of human history was basically against any sort of miscegenation. And it doesn't matter what people group you're talking about, they were essentially against miscegenation. And that's what makes it a genetic fallacy. What you're doing is you're taking the history of the time period and you're associating it to the laws of the land and the particulars of the time period, and then you're moving it forward and saying, well, wait, this is what Christian ethics was. It's not. It's not what Christian ethics was. And you can't point to
but
individual...
you have Christian ethics today?
We Christian ethics, what is... Yeah, I'm trying to explain.
This is the no true Scotsman fallacy, which is implicit in the contradiction. You're sitting here saying
not a no true
they weren't
fallacy.
Christians, whereas in the future, this was just going to happen again.
No, I didn't say they weren't Christians. I said that they... I didn't say they weren't... Nope. I said they weren't...
you said that they weren't using Christian ethics.
Nope, I said they violated them. So here's the thing.
Same difference.
Hang on. No, it's not the same difference. When you use a no true Scotsman, I'll explain so that you understand.
Go ahead.
When you use a no true Scotsman fallacy, you're misapplying it. If I were to say this group over here, they just weren't Christians and there's absent no justification, it'd be a no true Scotsman fallacy. But if I say that a person follows or self-IDs an ethical framework and then doesn't follow the ethical framework itself, that's not a no true Scotsman fallacy. That's pointing to particulars in the ethical normative work and saying X person violated those ethics. And they can still self-ID as, in this case, the Scotsman, right? But that wouldn't be a no true Scotsman fallacy. Do you understand the difference there in the particular?
Okay, there's 5 minutes left, and let's try to answer the remainder. I cannot speak. The remainder of the questions directly and concisely.
Okay, I don't think there are 5 minutes left because my timer was just about to run out. Because Andrew did say, like, hey, I'm taking over, but he can reclaim his time. But I started my stopwatch.
I added 7 minutes in total.
Well, I think you're going to end up giving me too much time. Like I'm going to try to be fair.
Okay.
I'm going to address what you said, Andrew, and then I had a bunch of questions, but there's only one more I want to ask because I don't want to take up a huge amount of time. That would look unfair. But you lost me on the no true Scotsman thing there because the issue I'm having here is you're saying that the people in the past, they violated the Christian ethic, but that's what people in the future are going to say about Christians today, and the claims, like political or whatever, that they make and they ground it in Christianity, and they'll say that there's the violation or that they violated it as well. That's what I think is the pernicious contradiction in all of this. So,
well, even if that fallacy, like even if I granted for a second, just for the sake of argument, that it was the no true Scotsman fallacy, it still actually wouldn't be a contradiction. There's still no proposition and its negation happening at the same time. Well, all that would happen is that you could point out that I made some sort of fallacious argument, like, oh, they weren't real Christians. However, the thing is like, if you follow any ideology on planet Earth, if you're a utilitarian, for instance, but you're not acting in a fashion which is utilitarian, you're not following the normative framework of utilitarianism, it's very easy for me to say, okay, UID is a utilitarian, but you're violating the ethical purviews of utilitarianism. That's not a no true Scotsman fallacy. It's an objective statement of truth.
That's a categorical imperative type of notion that I'm hearing there. I mean, anybody
no,
can
it's not an imperative.
Anybody can fall short of anybody can fall short of what they claim they believe in. We do that all the time. But
yes.
But that's not
Christianity
the same thing
actually adjusts for
grounding what you're doing ethics. In what your belief is.
Yeah. So yeah, you understand Christianity actually has an adjustment for this. The idea of you shall know them by their fruits. So essentially, we can tell when people are violating Christian ethics, and our duty is to bring them back to the fold of Christianity. So when you point to just a particular of a violation of Christian ethics, that does not mean that this is on the back of Christianity. That would be a no true Scotsman fallacy. So if you're trying to say because Christians did this, and the Christian here are saying, well, wait, they aren't real, you would actually be making that fallacy. So the thing is, like, to back it up, just so you understand, if you violate your ethical purview with self ID, that's not a no true Scotsman fallacy for me to explain that inside of the religious purview, in this case Christianity, we know them by their fruits. That's what we know them by, and we have the particulars in order to make those judgments.
The problem there is, I'll say this and I'll just move on to the last thing. You're kind of, I don't know if I would call it begging the question or whatever, but you're telling them they violated, but you're ascribing your ethic onto them and saying they violated it, instead of understanding that according to them, this is the ethic. But
so then as long as people groups at that time who are Christians also claim that they violated it, you would have no case? Does that even make sense to you?
I didn't catch that.
So if Christians at the time condemned that as being non-Christian behavior, then you wouldn't have an argument, right?
For that particular thing, but it's not as if they're
right. Except you still would. That's the problem, though. You still actually would have an argument for that particular thing. That's why the argument has no merit. It has no merit simply because you're pointing to. I disagree. You're pointing to a particular, and then you say, based on the particular, can we not look at our normative framework and see if people stepped outside of the particular? And it's like, yeah, of course we can. Of course, sure. You do it all the time. Everybody does that normative framework. We have to. Begging the question
30 seconds
would be if you had a proposition and then inside of the proposition, you put essentially what the conclusion was in the proposition itself, which is not what we're doing.
I know what begging the question here is. My last thing, though, is there anything that only a Christian is capable of believing in besides like the specific claims about like the divinity of Christ?
I don't actually understand this question. So pretend I'm a fifth grader and you're asking it to me so that I understand it.
That's time, although you can finish your...
No. Let him finish his question.
Yeah, this is the last thing. I'm not really sure how to simplify it really, but is there I'll just ask it again. Is there anything that only a Christian is capable of believing in?
Only a Christian is capable of believing in. I mean, I don't think so. I guess if I understand what your question is, can anybody believe in anything? Is that the correct way to maybe rephrase that? No.
I'm specifically trying to get at, is Christianity privileged? And my time is up, so I'll just end with the point I'm trying to make here. And you say no, I think the answer is no as well. And then I think that's kind of devastating for, Christianity we don't need it in government, because if anybody's capable of believing whatever it is you're trying to get the government to do, then anybody can believe it, and it's not sourced via Christianity.
That's a very confusing argument to me as well, and I would love to dissect it, and I guess I can in a second with my cross-examination. But I'm just trying to understand. I guess I would need more clarity to even understand what you were asking. But anyway, if you're ready for the cross-examination, I am too.
So we'll be moving into your cross-exam now. It'll be 30 minutes as well. If obviously, feel free to reclaim your time. If something's going on, you can ask questions, get back on topic. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll go ahead and start your timer. And once again, try to answer the questions directly and concisely.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm ready when you are, Mr.
Perfect.
Peterson.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question satisfactorily as I think I could. I hope you do the same for me. So, starting with this, do you have any problems with Christians being in government?
No, to the extent that a Christian holds because it's not should Christians be in government, it's Christianity.
I know. Just so none of these are going to be loaded and none of these are going to be gotchas. I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying a couple things. First and foremost, just yes or no. Do you have any problems with Christians being in government?
No, because to the extent that a Christian holds beliefs and they act on them and whatever those beliefs are, to the extent that those beliefs overlap with the limits of government put in the Constitution, that's not a problem. I don't think it's a contradiction.
And inside of the Constitution, what can you explain very quickly what the process is for an amendment?
You need, I don't remember the specific numbers. You need 3/4 of the states to ratify it. As far as Congress, I don't know if it's 2/3 or what.
Yeah. So there's multiple
No,
ways to make
it
an
has
amendment.
to be ratified by the states for it to count, because we famously had this recently. There's something Joe Biden was trying to get in there, some equal protections thing. And
You think 3/4 of the state came together for every amendment in the Constitution? Really?
I mean, historically, like, weird things have happened. There didn't used to be primaries 100 years ago, but now we do have them. So,
Yeah. So anyway, so back to this. By the way, that's just factually inaccurate. But the thing is like, that aside, we'll just leave that aside for a second. Let me just ask you, and I'm reclaiming my time on this. I'm kidding. Let me just ask you this. If Christians then, if you have no problem with them being in office, if there was such an overflow of the numbers, because that was the representation that people wanted, they voted in Christians and they made an amendment to, like, I don't know, get rid of the First Amendment, which they're completely well within their rights to do. What's the problem with that?
So our Constitution has a system where you can amend amendments, the 21st or 2nd, whatever, undid prohibition or whatever.
Well, no, you can just undo amendments altogether.
Yeah, with amendments. But
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with, I think the problem with this is, that wouldn't be, if you amend the First Amendment, then I can just say, well, then we can just re-amend it because it was wrong of them to amend it in the first place. So
Sure. Yeah. You could re-amend it after you get power back. But if Christians actually have power, what is your actual argument against them amending the First Amendment, which is prescribed in the Constitution that they can do?
I don't have an argument that they can't do it. The First Amendment says that is something that can be done.
Should they not be able to do that?
Well, it's kind of weird because we have an establishment clause. So if they did that,
well, yeah, I mean, but we used to have a slavery clause, right?
Then it would be.
But hang on, Mr. Peterson, we used to have a slavery clause, right? And we amended.
You used to have a slavery clause?
Yeah, we used to be able to own slaves. That was a yes.
That's not a. No, none of the first 12 amendments said you can own slaves. That's completely false.
I'm
actually,
sorry, hang on. Back up. Hang on. Stop. It's not your cross-examination here. Okay, just so that you know, though, you do realize that there were state constitutions which said you can own slaves, right?
Before secession happened,
Mm-hmm.
it specifically said that they could own slaves. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, specifically, and also, you do realize there was a 3/5 clause, right?
Yeah, black people counted as 3/5 of a person.
So all those things need to be amended, right?
Well, if the Constitution gets changed, then that becomes federal law, and then it supersedes the state constitution.
Right. So at the federal level, if Christians went ahead and amended the First Amendment, what's the problem?
Well, I think it would be wrong because I think that's a violation of what the First Amendment says. And
yeah, but wait, that's circular. The Constitution is set up so that we can amend amendments, yes or no?
Yeah.
So if it is the case that it's set up for us to do that, if Christians have power and you have no problem with Christians having power and they amend that amendment, what's the problem?
Because the framers of the Constitution set up the ability to amend the Constitution with respect to being able to produce a more better union, or however they say it.
Yeah, but who are you to determine what's better? Who are you to determine that? Wouldn't it be the people who are elected? You want people to be elected by their constituency, yes or no?
Well, yeah.
Okay, and if the people who are elected by their constituency are Christians, you have no problem with that, yes or no?
No.
So then if those people who are elected by their constituency want to amend the First Amendment, that is the process that you want to be allowed to happen, right?
No, because you didn't let me. You didn't let me finish my answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, because the framers of the Constitution, they they built that system, and there are people that said we don't want a Bill of Rights. That was the first election. That was the one of the biggest issues up for that, because we didn't have a Bill of Rights at first, but they did that in order to. They thought that was their way that in the future they'd be able to keep having a more functional, a better union, a better constitution, a better government. But they initially said no state government, because that will that
well, I don't know.
dysfunctional
well,
government.
that's very undemocratic.
So it would be in violation
Mr.
of
Peterson, that's undemocratic. Do you agree with me that that's not democratic? For you to say that we cannot change the First Amendment by democratic means, that's actually undemocratic, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I don't understand. Is the capacity there for us to do it? Is it written into the Constitution that we can do this? And you don't have a problem with Christians being elected by their constituency?
No.
So what is your actual problem with Christians changing this if it's within the very system that you want them to change it in? Literally, your system is, I want to elect person goes in representing the constituency. All these people get together and they amend the First Amendment. That is the system that you want, right?
I don't want them to. The idea that amendments can be made means that I have to accept that the First Amendment should be amended. Is not a real case.
No. You don't have the should. You have the shouldn't. I want to know why it is that Christians shouldn't do that, other than because you don't like it.
Because, well, it'd be a violation of the spirit of the purpose of a constitutional.
It doesn't
republic.
Sound like it. It sounds like the purpose of the Constitution. No, it doesn't sound like it. Well, hang on. How would it violate the purpose of a constitutional republic if this is the framework of the constitutional republic, sir?
Because a government is supposed to outline a constitutional republic, sets limitations, and like there are other things that like it allows for.
Yes, I agree. The constitutional republic sets limitations, and in these limitations, it says that you can amend the First Amendment. Yes or no?
Yeah, but you're not.
This is the system you want, dude.
To trash. No, because you're not supposed to make amendments to make the system dysfunctional. It's like saying, "Hey, I own an engine, right? Yeah, and I want to win the Daytona 500, right? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to dump a bunch of nails into my engine.
Wait,
you're not going to win the Daytona 500. You can't tell me I can't.
I'm going to reclaim my time.
Okay.
What makes that dysfunctional? What makes it dysfunctional if they got rid of the First Amendment when we have countries, by the way, which I just cited in my opening, that don't have this separation? In fact, England, they have a state church as well. Many European nations have state churches. What actually would make the nation dysfunctional? It seems like it would function just fine. The states could then ratify the amendments of their own for their own state religions. They can do that. They practically do now, like Utah. Utah is basically Mormon. Whether you like it or not, it basically is. What would actually make it dysfunctional?
So, like, you can cherry pick those countries if you want, but we have studies. High religiosity and societal dysfunction in the United States during the first decade of the 21st century.
Okay. So then should we select for?
So it can be statistically demonstrated.
Back up.
And I have a global study as well.
I only have so much time. I agree with you. You have studies, right, that say that religiosity makes you dysfunctional. How come you don't quote the studies that say high IQ make you dysfunctional? Should we start selecting for people who have a high IQ because it makes them more dysfunctional? Because it does. The higher your IQ, the more dysfunctional you get. You want studies on it? I have them in the boatloads. That's why you see people who have all sorts of issues when it comes to social behavior. The higher their IQ is, makes you totally dysfunctional. Do you want to outlaw that? No high IQ people in office?
You mean low IQ people?
No, high IQ makes you dysfunctional. High. Yeah. You have a really, is it bizarre? The suicidality goes up. There's tons of reasons you become dysfunctional. Yes. I do want studies. I'll give them to you happily. If you have a really high IQ, you actually become more socially dysfunctional. That is the case. Why do you think they commit suicide at such high rates? Not only that, but hang on, it's my turn, bro.
I know, but you asked me a question.
Yeah, and
I can answer.
Hang on,
it's your time. Go for it.
Very quickly, I'm just going to go through this. You can't actually explain how the nation itself would become dysfunctional because we amended the First Amendment, because the constituency sent up Christians and they did that. You have to tell me how that would actually make the nation dysfunctional.
If you're asking me to tell you what, if this happened, what would specifically be the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing that would happen? I mean, I can't tell you a story of something that hasn't happened, which is why we refer to studies.
So you just can't back your claim up.
No, I have studies that
no, you have studies that say that
high religiosity. Well, I mean, Andrew, you know that the Bible Belt is also the teen pregnancy belt, the STD belt.
My turn, bro.
Well,
my turn.
It wasn't really.
Not only that, let's just point out that also secularism has trouble with reproduction. Don't you think that it's dysfunctional if you're not reproducing? That's one. And two, you still have not demonstrated. Don't address it. I'm making a statement. It's my cross-examination. You have not demonstrated how the nation would become dysfunctional because people used your system, the one that you want, to make amendments, like if the system says you can, based on their religiosity, to get rid of the First Amendment. You have not demonstrated that would make the system dysfunctional, only claimed it, demonstrated.
So I'll talk about the low birth rates and then I'll do that.
No, I don't want to hear about low birth rates. It wasn't a question I asked. It was a statement I made. Answer the question I asked you.
That seems
answer the
unfair.
Question I asked you.
But you brought it up, and
answer the question
I feel I need to address it.
You can address it when you get back to your time for open debate. This is my cross-examination. Please answer the question I asked.
Okay. The second thing. Sorry, what was the second thing?
Yeah, I will just do this very quickly. Okay, just so that you very quickly. I got to reclaim my time. Yeah. So, the question I'm asking you, you need to be you. I mean, you have to demonstrate that it would actually be dysfunctional. That's your claim. I don't want to hear about demonstrations that religiosity can lead some people to become more dysfunctional. I would need to know how the nation itself is going to become dysfunctional because you get rid of the part in the First Amendment that says that Congress has to respect every establishment of religion. I need to know how does that make the nation actually dysfunctional, to get rid of the establishment clause.
The studies I was referring to, they weren't talking about it wasn't about individuals. It's about the country as one does it by a state basis. The other does it was a more national study. But for example, I mean, I can prove that even according to you, there seems like some pretty damning information, because I'm pretty sure that you're not in favor of STDs, teen pregnancies, suicide, low life expectancy.
You haven't shown how any of those things. You haven't shown how any of those things would suddenly go boom because you got rid of the establishment clause. Like, for instance, I'll explain the contradiction. I'll explain the contradiction in terms real quick. Even if it were the case that right this second, okay, religious people, it was correlated with teen pregnancy and all of these different things. These people are free to exercise that religion now. So wouldn't it be the case if they weren't free to exercise that would actually lower those rates?
I don't know what that could possibly have been an argument for, because what you find is all those things I brought up are highest among the most religious states. So the more religious you are, the more in this country, the more teen pregnancy you have.
Yes, but if Congress doesn't have to respect the establishment of religion anymore, right? They can say that you can't practice unhealthy religions, can't they?
What?
Answer my question. Couldn't they say that?
That didn't make any sense.
What didn't make any sense? Do you want me to ask the question again? If Congress did not have to respect the establishment of religion anymore, then unhealthy religions, right, or religions they deem to be unhealthy for the nation.
For banning Christianity.
I didn't advocate for anything. When did I make any advocation for anything ever?
Just now?
I'm asking when. When was that an advocation? I'm asking you simple questions about your worldview. Do you know what the difference is?
Yes, I do.
So, great. So then, where was there ever an advocacy for X from me?
Okay,
nowhere.
Apologies.
You fucking made it up. So that aside, I'm going to ask you again. If it were the case that the Establishment Clause was gone, couldn't Congress then not respect religions which were unhealthy for the society? Can you answer my question, dude?
It's such a bizarre question that doesn't make any sense because
Oh my God, what is
Establishment
bizarre?
Clause doesn't ban religions. It says that Congress will not make a state religion. It doesn't say that Congress doesn't have the ability to ban religion. It says that Congress will not impose religious law onto the population.
It says the free exercise thereof. You are wrong, sir. So yes, if you got rid of the Establishment Clause, the free exercise thereof would be gone. So
the Establishment Clause is not the same thing as you are allowed to practice your religion.
Yes, it is. It says the free exercise thereof. I'll read it for you, sir. Here, we'll read it. Because apparently you don't even know what it says. Okay. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Do you understand? The free exercise thereof. So if you got rid of that, they could prohibit the free exercise thereof, correct?
Sure. So we would get
rid
of
great.
Christianity,
Oh, wow,
which
you just
is
answered a fucking question.
in this
Can we get you a
country.
medal for actually answering the question? So yes, it is indeed the case.
Calm down.
It is indeed. Well, dude, I have to pull the answers out of you because you don't want to answer them. This is what I was talking about by bad faith.